Rolling. All right. Coach, opening statement.
Yeah, obviously, this past weekend, tough game. Tough game. Bowling Green, as I mentioned after the game, great football team. But we're moving forward. We're looking forward to the opportunity that we have this weekend, the day after Thanksgiving, to get a chance to take the field one last time with this Team 100 in a showdown against Ohio. Also a really phenomenal football team. Coach Tim Albin has done a phenomenal job over his tenure there at Ohio. I think I just learned, he's been there such a long time, obviously since I think 2005, if I'm not mistaken. But his leadership, his knowledge has done wonders for that program, and they're playing at a high level because of it. So looking forward to take the field with these men one last time against one of the classiest programs in the Mid-American Conference.
Are you kind of viewing this game as you guys have nothing to lose, they kind of have everything to lose?
No, I don't view things like that. We have a lot to lose, too. Our kids put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of energy into achieving wins. We have a lot to lose, right? We have a lot to lose. The heartache in the locker room after you lose, it sticks with you, especially when you're a senior. You never want to remember your last football game as a loss. So by all means, we're going to this thing with the mindset that, we want to play a spoiler, absolutely, but we still have a lot to lose when we step on the field as competitors. So, no, we're not going to take that mindset. Our mindset is going to always be about us, and we've got to go and take care of business in an environment that's going to be against us. And we got to be able to handle that environment and go win.
What do you remember about your final game at Ball State?
Oh, man. My final game here at Ball State Stadium was against Buffalo, but my last game as a Cardinal was on the road at Marshall. A lot of emotions. The win over Buffalo got us 6 wins. The game against Marshall, if we win it, we're at 7. Back then, the MAC only had 2 bowl tie-ins. And, if you, even if you finish with 6 wins, 7 wins, sometimes 8 wins, you didn't go to a bowl game. You had to win. You had to be in the MAC championship to be in one of the 2 bowl tie-ins. So we were going in that thing full of pride, and you got to remember, during my tenure, we had the nation's longest losing streak at 21 games. And then we turned that around my junior and senior year. We were 1 game removed my junior year from going to the MAC championship, and then my senior year to get that thing to 6 wins. It was an incredible feat. But I remember going on the road to Marshall. Byron Leftwich was their quarterback. They were a stacked football team. It was snowing in Huntington, West Virginia. It's exactly the type of backdrop that you want to remember as your last football game. And it was special. We did not win. Marshall was too much for us. But I remember vividly one of the officials on the field caught me in the middle of a timeout and told me, "Hey, 64, really enjoy watching you play. I think you play the game the right way, and I hope for you to have a lot of success in whatever it is you do moving forward." And that meant a lot to me, right? What it tells you is someone's always watching you, whether or not you're the starter or you're a backup or you're just part of the team. Someone's watching, and you're making an impact on somebody's life by the way you approach things and the way you attack it. So that's always the message, right? We got a lot to lose. We do. And someone's watching the way we're going to finish and compete, and certainly how we move forward after this season.
Yeah. Is that something that you've also gotten the sense from the players as well, where they know that just as well as you're saying it?
Absolutely. Well, one, I try to drive it home. I think sometimes as players, you can't help but hear all the noise. There's a lot of noise out there, whether it's your family, your friends, random students in the dining facility, your buddies who go to other schools, or you open, the newspaper or read what's on the internet. Certainly Twitter and Instagram has given everybody a voice. There's a lot of noise. And as players, as coaches, we try to teach those players, you got to drown out that noise. None of it matters because nobody's in here at 6 a.m. when we're here getting ready for practice. No one's here in the summertime in the middle of the heat where we're out in the field and we're running. No one knows how much effort and energy and time we put into building a football program and going into a football season. So, yeah, everyone wants to know what your record is. But I don't know if everybody knows the triumphs that each individual goes through on an individual basis every single year. You talk about guys who've gotten injured and have to go through a whole season not getting a chance to compete, right? Their many wins are the progress they make as they get back from injury, right? So it's a lot that goes into this thing. And, every man should be celebrated. Every man should be celebrated for making it through a college football season. It's hard, right? And it's a lot of emotion to it. But we got to start getting away from just the wins and losses and start looking at the body of work that some of these young men put in this thing. So that's what I'm most happy about our seniors. They've endured a lot. They've gone through a lot. They got to be a part of a MAC championship program. But certainly they've had to endure so much here down the road. The way they finish on Friday, they're always going to be winners in my book.
How did, the team that had that long losing streak that you were a part of, what happened to flip the script?
We got older. And we cared. And I think I mentioned when I came into this program, Ball State was one of the winningest programs in the Mid-American Conference through the 90s. And, when I first got here, we had a number of guys who were injured, big-time players who were injured, and they weren't the same players they were. We had to make a transition at quarterback. Brent Baldwin, who was Mid-American Conference, All-Mid-American Conference quarterback, transitioned into coaching, and, they were trying to find his replacement and who that would be. Jake Giuseppe was the quarterback my senior year and was a phenomenal leader. Just probably wasn't the same talent as Brent and certainly didn't have some of the same talented players around him. And, we kind of lost our edge a little bit. And it carried over into the next 2 years. Well, going into my redshirt junior year, which was a 2001 season, we had recruited really, really well, especially up front on the defensive line. Our defensive line, I would put that line up against a whole lot of Mid-American Conference defensive lines. Even now, we were very, very talented. But then we had a phenomenal running back. We had an awesome offensive line. And we had gotten a quarterback who was pretty special, could move the ball with his feet, and certainly understood the game, which gave us a chance. By no means were we perfect, but I know we cared about each other. Our head coach, Bill Lynch, did a great job in keeping the team together and focusing on the right things. And, we especially back then, you probably played 4 non-conference games that, were really tough wins. So you go into it to the Mid-American Conference year, you're 0-4, and you really don't know how good you are yet. And we got to the Mid-American Conference schedule, and we found out that, hey, as long as we take care of the football and as defense, we play great, we're going to be in every single one of these MAC games. No different than what we've been here over the last, 4 or 5 years, 6 years since I've been here. So football doesn't change, right? Kids don't change. A lot of people like to say kids are different nowadays. They aren't. They all want to be coached hard. They all want to be told the truth, right? And they all want to be successful. So as a coach, you got to stick by that. You got to trust in what you're doing, and you got to find a way to find a buy-in within the players in your program. And I think we have that. And the only thing we can do is make sure these guys, especially the guys that are returning here next year, are bought into the process and the groundwork that we laid, because there can be success here.
You kind of hinted at it there, but do you feel like that there are things that you learned as a player throughout that time that are still applicable to today's players in this program?
Absolutely. There's no substitution for hard work, but there's also no substitution to your preparation. And that's also one of the big messages for these guys. We've got to make sure when we step on the field, we can maximize all that hard work we put into this program by being prepared with the game plan. And that shows up, right, how we execute on Friday, certainly how we execute during the season on Saturdays. When you're confident and you know what you're doing, all that hard work, right, can then be put into action. If you're not so confident, if you're not sure what you're doing, if you get out there and you're a step slow because you're hesitating, that's going to make the difference. So, like I said, I have utmost faith in what we're doing And now I got to get those players to realize, hey, it's our preparation, how we go about our week, what we do to put ourselves in positions to make plays on Friday.
What do you think is the biggest thing when it comes to preparation before Friday that this team needs to really hone in on to have success?
Yeah, our technique and our execution of the plan, right? We got to show up. We got to show up. When the ball, whether it's handed off, we got to fit our gaps on defense. We got to show up, get the ball down. On offense, we got to execute the schemes. We got to cover people up. We got to finish blocks, right? And then certainly the backs got to finish runs. When the ball's in the air on defense, we got to make a play on the ball. But in order to make that play, we got to trust our eyes. We got to trust our technique. We got to be in the position to make a play on that football, right? That all comes back to our preparation. On the offensive side, we got to be precise in how we line up. We got to get off on the ball. We got to run our correct route based on what we see from a coverage standpoint. And then when the ball's in the air, we got to make a play on it, right? And that's football. Everyone in the country has to execute the same things, right? And so, you know, sometimes you can get into the nuances of, well, that player's really good. Absolutely. Really good players with a lot of talent, they got a greater margin of error, right? And so you see it in the NFL all the time. You know, guys making spectacular catches on a ball that's kind of thrown high. Well, their natural ability gives them that opportunity. Not because the quarterback gave him a great ball. That guy's a really talented athlete. Here, everyone has – the margin of error is so much greater, right? So everything has to be sharp. It has to be sharper. And the only way you can improve upon that is by improving upon your preparation and making sure we're spot on with what we're doing.
When it comes to you, what do you feel like was the biggest thing that you took away or learned from your first game as head coach?
To enjoy it, and that's what everybody told me. You know, it's different when you're not just watching the offensive line and you're not just on the offensive side of the ball, and you know you're not just encouraging the O-line to play at their best. Now I have to branch out and be everybody's coach, and sometimes I don't know all the nuances of what the defense is doing. Especially in the defensive backfield. I never coached that. I have coached defensive line before. I played defensive line, all right? But at the same time, I'm also not going to step on any of my coaches' toes. I believe in what they're doing. So it's not my job to go in and coach these kids in terms of what they're doing on the field. It's my job to provide support, right, and encouragement and a whole lot of love and to make sure they know that I'm behind them. But then you add in the whole layer of I've got to handle the officials. Right, and I got to talk to those guys, and believe me, our Mid-American Conference officials, they do a phenomenal job. I will put them up with any officiating crew in the country. I think they do a phenomenal job. They communicate well with us coaches, and when they're on the field, they believe it's their job to call it fair. And sometimes us coaches don't agree with that, right? But I'm never going to be one of those coaches to blame something on a call, right? If we're in the right position and we're doing what we're supposed to, call should be negligible. Shouldn't be an issue. So I hold those guys in high esteem and high regard, and I hope they saw that from me on the field on Saturday. So you can't let the emotions, right, overwhelm you. We had a great first half Saturday, and, second half, not so great. And certainly going into the fourth quarter, my message to the guys was, hey, we lost our composure a little bit on the field. We got to regain it. We weren't out of that thing, but we got to regain it, and we got to make some plays. And unfortunately, the game didn't go our way. It got away from us, and we didn't handle it well in the second half. That's something to learn from. We got to finish, and I talked about that last week. All those Mid-American Conference games where we got to the fourth quarter, we had to finish. Well, we certainly didn't finish coming out second half, and so we got to find a way to do that here this week.
With how long the football season is, what's it been like walking in this week and practicing, knowing it kind of ends on Friday?
Yeah, it blows by. It's almost surreal. Football season is interesting because you start it in the summer when you report for fall camp, and all of a sudden you progress into the fall, certainly in the thick of it. And then towards the end, you're knocking on winter's door, and you feel all the change in the seasons all in that time frame, and you feel it. Not only do you see it and you get to the end, but you feel it just in the air. And it's surreal, man. And to know that this Team 100 season is coming to the end is certainly isn't easy, because I love being around these guys. I love working with these guys. I love coaching these guys. But when you sign up for this job, you know every season is going to come to the end. So how you approach it and how you prepare hopefully puts you in a great situation at the end of it. So I'm going to enjoy this week. I really am. I'm going to enjoy this time with my extended family in this program, and certainly give my best effort for these guys, because they've earned it, right? They've earned it. I've watched these guys grow up and pour their hearts into this program, so all I can do is do the same for them.
And then obviously with this week being Thanksgiving, I'm kind of curious how the planning looks for the players. Are they going home or reporting or?
Well, not only is it Thanksgiving, but it's a short week. And our biggest mission was, how do we get these guys ready to play in 6 days instead of 7? Whereas normally today would be their off day, right? We had to take the field today, and their off day will be Saturday. So we wanted to make sure we got practice in, and it couldn't be a physical practice because they just played a game 48 hours ago. So we had to make sure that our preparation was going to be mental, right? And get on the field, run through the game plan, the initial game plan, and make sure we get everything out of it from a mental standpoint. But as we progress forward, right, we got to start to ramp it up a little bit. Not physically. I still don't want to tax these guys physically from contact, but certainly we got to get their legs going, right, and get them running a little bit and get ready for Friday. We will have a meal together here on Wednesday, because a lot of these guys, you know, they won't get to see their families on Thanksgiving. And unfortunately, it's not ideal, but they have a family here. Our families as coaches are here, so we're going to make sure we all gather together on Wednesday after practice and have a Thanksgiving meal together as a team and as a family. I think that's pretty important. And then certainly we travel on Thanksgiving Day on Thursday. So it's not ideal, but, you know, every team in America, some high school programs are getting ready to play state championship games here this weekend. The NFL is certainly, they're playing games on Thanksgiving Day. So, you know, it's part of American football. It's ingrained in our society as football. Thanksgiving is not a holiday when you're a football athlete. It's a day of work. So we got to get ourselves ready. We'll be on the field. It won't be a taxing because obviously we're traveling that day, but we'll get on the field in the morning, get a little workout in before we get on the bus and head to Athens.
You talked a little about the team on Saturday kind of getting down and losing some composure a little bit. How do you avoid them kind of falling into the same trap, especially in a road environment?
You know, if you got the answer to that, I would love to have it, right? I bet if you look at half the teams across the country, they're all trying to figure out the same thing, right? Because half the teams lose. And there's a breakdown here, there's a breakdown there. The other team takes advantage of it, and they get in a rhythm. I talked about it. We never got in a rhythm offensively Saturday. And certainly you can't expect to move and matriculate the ball downfield if you're not playing in rhythm and you're not getting guys where they're supposed to be. So we've got to correct that. I'm not one to make excuses. I never want to make excuses. We got a team of 119 guys. We got to be able to find 11 to get on the field and execute. But when you talk about not playing with some of your best wideouts, certainly missing some of your better offensive linemen, it certainly makes a difference in the football game. Everybody in America is beat up by this point, though, right? Everybody is. And I'm sure as we go into Ohio, they've got their own problems. But we got to be able to overcome those problems, and that's part of it. So, yeah, we got to put faith in our kids. We got to put faith in ourselves as coaches, put faith in the game plan, and see to it that we can go out there and execute it. I don't think it's a motivational issue. I really don't. I just think we've got to make sure we put our players in the best position to go and make plays with what we have.
You talked about playing without those receivers. Obviously, we got word before the game that Justin was taking a red shirt, and then in the last couple of days, we've seen Kyle enter the portal, and now this morning with Taryn Tayo in the portal. So obviously, without divulging too much detail, I know these are kind of strange situations, and every player has their own things they're dealing with. But How do you kind of manage those sort of situations going into this last game?
Well, you can't let it bother you as a coach. As you said, every player has their own situation going on, and certainly this is the new normal of college football. I knew for a long time that was going to be Terrence's plan. I'm his position coach, and he came and talked to me about it, and so I kind of knew that was going to happen. We also knew about Justin. It was unfortunate. Justin had the situation that happened at the beginning of the year where he missed the first 6 games due to injury. And I think in that time, he kind of started to weigh the options of, okay, what happens? And certainly it got to the point where after the Buffalo game and we were knocked out of bowl contention, I think that's where his mind went. I want to maximize my opportunity to play for the next 2 years. And you can't fault him for that, right? You can't fault him for that. He certainly has a bright future, and to have 2 seasons left to play and go play a full year, right, it's only going to make him a better football player out of his career. So, we don't view those things as certainly a negative. We miss them, right? We miss them, but those players make those decisions between themselves and their family and what's best for them, and all we can do is honor them. So, if you look around the country, I guarantee there's going to be a lot more. I don't peruse Twitter like that so often, so I'm not sure what's going on around like that. But it's something that, especially as teams start figuring out their bowl games, and now you add in the 12-team playoff. If teams don't make that playoff, you're going to see a lot of guys opting out of playing in their team's bowl game because in their mind, what am I playing for? Especially those guys who are getting ready to play for an NFL career. All of a sudden, you start looking at the statistics. They're telling you, don't put yourself at risk and hurt your draft position. Your body of work up to now has determined your draft status. And if you have a draft grade, all you can do is hurt it, right? So there's other people smarter than me that, get in these guys' ear and certainly lead them to their decisions. So all you can do is respect their decision because it's not going to change anything.
In Terrence's statement kind of announcing his decision, he spoke very highly of you. He called you like the ultimate players coach and said that you treat all of the offensive linemen like they're your own sons. So how does that feel to kind of just see that and know that you're so highly thought of by the guys in that room?
It makes me feel great. It's exactly why I got into this profession. My offensive line coach when I was here, I actually had 2. When I first got here, Rich Spizak was the offensive coordinator and coached the offensive line. Scott Pethel, he and Rich both kind of co-coached the O-line. Scott was tackles, tight ends. Coach Spies was centers and guards. And those 2 men, I see Coach Pethel before every single home game. He's out there on the field, and I give him a big hug. Those men mean so much to me. And then when I got moved from defensive line, because when I first got recruited, I was an offensive lineman. We had some injuries in fall camp. I moved to defensive line. I played my first 2 years, my redshirt year and my redshirt freshman year on the defensive side. And then when they moved me back to offensive line, they also moved Ted Huber, who was the defensive line coach, over to offensive line. So I was fortunate to be with Coach Huber for really my whole career as a position coach. And when I tell you there's no man more special than him in terms of my development as a man and as a player, he means the world to me. So when I set off on this journey to be a college football coach, I've had that vision in my mind the entire time, right? Be that for these young men because they need it. They need it. So, yeah, it makes me feel great. It does. I pour my heart into all these guys and to make sure they're the best player, but also some of the best teammates and best people on this campus, and I think we've accomplished that. Like I said, Terrence came and talked to me, and although I love to have him on the sideline with us here this weekend, I couldn't fault his reasoning. So I wish him the very, very best, and I'm going to be his biggest fan. And it's not the first time I've gone through it, right? We had the same situation last year with Corey Stewart, and certainly, Corey was one of my favorites. But, these young men, they've got some decisions to make, and there's a lot at risk for them as well. So I can only support them through the process.
We've heard other coaches at Ball State, specifically Michael Lewis, talk about how he feels about this kind of being the new norm of college sports.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about this being the new norm?
Yeah, well, it is the new norm, and I'll be honest with you, there's nothing we can do about it, right? So you can either complain about it and, not get with it, or you can just keep coaching because that's what the tag says on my door. Keep coaching them, keep leading them to be the players they want to be, and all we can do is lend them our ear when they want to talk and give them advice when they ask for it. Other than that, right, it's not a whole lot we can do because I lived both sides of it. As a player, when guys want to transfer and you heard the nightmares of, hey, I wanted to get out of a program, but they didn't let me out with the release, and they ended up staying there and not very happy. Or, you had to transfer down to the FCS or the D2 level. And so, yeah, a lot of people listened to those complaints, and they made it so that the players had a, fair shake in terms of their future. And so I can't complain about it. All I can do is do my job as a coach. And if that means I do a great job and a kid gets an opportunity to go make a little money and play at a higher level, good, right? Good. It's only going to help his future, or at least give him a different experience than what he's already known. Isn't that what this is all about? It's all about the experiences. And if it's going to make you a better person for it, great. Now, if you show me the science that this is turning out worse people and they're not being significant members to society and all those things, then, yeah, we should probably think about what we're doing here. But until that comes out, which I doubt ever will, right, nothing's going to change. So we might as well get with the program and support these kids the best way we can and give them a shot at the best opportunities they can get. You used to just go in and recruit guys out of high school. Well, shoot, we can recruit guys from every level now, right? So certainly there's a lot more to it than that, but we still have an opportunity to fill these seats with quality young men that can help us go win football games. Awesome. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you too, Coach.
Thank you.